The Executor was gone. Jabba the Hutt was dead. The Bounty Hunter Guild was fracturing into bloody civil war, and Bossk was running out of fuel. The Transocean stood at the viewport of his starship, the Houndstooth, watching the neon-choked sky of Nar Shaddaa. The Empire's defeat at Endor had shattered the galaxy's underworld. Imperial remnants paid in worthless chain codes, whilst the emerging New Republic jailed hunters just for holding a thermal detonator. To survive, Bossk needed a massive score. He needed the sunken jewel. 3 days ago, a panicked Corellian pilot traded an encrypted data pad for his life in a cantina on Canonical. The pad contained the final coordinates of a cloaked Imperial cargo tender, the Vigilance, which had vanished during the chaos of the rebel victory at Endor. It carried a vault of unrefined coaxium and top-secret Imperial black budgets. Bossk's reptilian eyes narrowed as the datapad whirred, translating the final jump vector. The coordinates pointed to the western reaches, a graveyard of uncharted anomalies and shifting space dust. The Houndstooth dropped out of hyperspace into a dense nebula of ionized gas. The sensor board flashed angry amber lights. Static screamed through the comms. Then it appeared. The Vigilance drifted upside down, its massive solar arrays shattered like frozen glass. The hull was scorched by turbo laser fire, but the main cargo bay door was intact. Bossk checked his heavy blaster rifle, strapped a bandolier of micro grenades across his scarred chest, and donned his environment suit. He hissed, his long tongue tasting the recycled air of his helmet. Easy money. Bossk boarded through a breached maintenance hatch. The interior of the Imperial ship was a tomb. Gravity was dead. Floating, frozen stormtrooper helmets and loose metal plating drifted through the dark corridors. Bossk used the magnetic clamps on his boots, each heavy step echoing through its suit. He navigated towards the central vault. His thermal sensors picked up nothing but absolute zero. Yet his hunting instincts, the deep ancestral instincts of a Transocean, warned him he was not alone. He stopped. He pressed his claw hand against the bulkhead. He felt a faint, rhythmic vibration. Thump, thump, thump. Not an engine. Footsteps. Bossk cut his magnetic boots and kicked off the wall, floating into a recessed alcove just as a crimson blaster bolt shattered the darkness. The plasma round hit the bulkhead right where his head had been, melting the metal into glowing slag. "Transocean scum!" a voice snarled over a localized comlink. Through the smoke, 3 figures advanced in zero gravity. They wore the jetpacks and mismatched armor of a rivaled mercenary crew, Gotul and the Weequay scavengers. They were armed with heavy repeating blasters. Bossk didn't retreat. He bared his sharp teeth in a predatory grin. He unhooked a smoke grenade and launched it into the center of the corridor. In the vacuum of the ship's interior, the thick chemical fog didn't rise. It expanded rapidly into a blinding shroud. The mercenaries panicked, firing blindly. Bossk activated his infrared visor. To him, the mercenaries glowed like bright beacons against the freezing steel. He propelled himself forward using his powerful legs. He caught the first Weequay by the throat. With a brutal twist, Bossk shattered the helmet's seal. The vacuum of space did the rest. He seized the dead man's repeating blaster and opened fire on the remaining 2. Crimson streaks illuminated the smoke. The Gotul took 3 rounds to the chest, his jetpack igniting and slamming him uncontrollably into the ceiling until he went still. The final hunter turned to flee, but Bossk launched a spiked grapple line from his wrist gauntlet. The hook bit deep into the mercenary's thigh. Bossk yanked the cable back, reeling his prey like a deep-sea predator, fishing him in with a single heavy blow from his clawed fist. Bossk breathed heavily, his reptilian chest heaving inside his suit. He kicked open the vault door with a manual override tool. Inside sat 3 heavy lockboxes bearing the seal of the Imperial Sector Governor. He cracked the first one. The blue glow of unrefined coaxium lit his scarred face. It was worth millions on the black market. He dragged the heavy boxes back to the Houndstooth, leaving the floating ghosts of his rivals behind. As his ship roared away from the dying nebula and jumped into the safe embrace of hyperspace, Bossk counted his credits. The Empire was dead, and the New Republic was soft. The galaxy was changing, but as long as people had riches and enemies, there would always be a place for a hunter who knew how to kill. Kuat Minor was a chaotic scrap heap of decommissioned Imperial shipyards and illegal smelting factories. It was the perfect place to hide unrefined coaxium. Bossk met his new contact in the bowels of an abandoned droid factory where the air hummed with electrical arcs and smelled of burnt oil. The buyer was a notorious antiques dealer and black market broker named Krakus the Hutt, operating out of a heavily fortified mechanical throne. Unlike Jabba, Krakus was cybernetically augmentated, his massive slug-like body supported by a set of robotic legs. Surrounding him were 10 Magna Guards, lethal, staff-wielding droids left over from the Clone Wars. "Ah, Bossk," Krakus boomed, his mechanical voice synthesizer rattling the metal rafters. "You survive while the rest of your guild dies. What do you bring to my court?" Bossk slammed the 3 heavy canisters of coaxium onto the oily floor. "Pure fuel. No pike middlemen. No imperial red tape. I want 100,000 credits. Hard currency." Krakus gestured with a massive ring-covered hand. A tiny, multi-limbed Anzelian tech-smith scurried forward, attaching a special analyzer to the canisters. The blue glow reflected in Grax's greedy, bulbous eyes. "It's untamed," Gracchus murmured, a low rumble vibrating from his chest. "But highly valuable. The local pirate fleets would pay a fortune to fuel their capital ships with this. I will give you 50,000 credits and safe passage out of the sector." Bosk's tails thrashed against the floor, leaving deep gouges in the rust. "The price is 100,000, or I blow this foundry to the stars." He held up a detonator, his claw resting heavy on the trigger. Krakus laughed, a wet, mechanical sound. "You threaten a hut in his own fortress. Bold. But I value your reputation, Transadosha. Let us compromise. 75,000 in solid New Republic credit chips. They are good anywhere." Bossk stared at the hut, his slit pupil eyes calculating. 75,000 was enough to completely refit the Hound's Tooth, buy enough ordnance to wage his own private war. "Deal," Bossk hissed. "Show me the chips." Before Krakus could signal his protocol droid, a high-pitched whistle cut through the damp air of the foundry. A heavy, metallic disc slammed into the floor right between Bossk and the coaxium canisters. It flashed once, emitting an intense, blinding pulse of sonic energy. Bossk roared in agony, his sensitive reptilian hearing shattered by the screeching frequency. He stumbled backwards, dropping his detonator. Krakus yelped as his cybernetic leg short-circuited from the feedback, dropping his massive frame onto the dirt. The Magna Guards spun around, their electro-stars crackling to life, but they were blind in the sudden chaos. From the dark, smoky rafters above, a lone figure dropped silently into the room. The attacker wore sleek, blast-dampening armor and a helmet with a T-shaped visor, but it wasn't Boba Fett. It was a rogue Mandalorian mercenary, a collection agent hired by the Pike Syndicate to reclaim what Bossk had stolen on Ord Mantle. The Mandalorian fired a wrist-mounted cable, wrapped it tightly around one of the coaxium canisters, and yanking it upwards into his grasp. "The Pikes send their regards, Transadoshan," the hunter modulated through his helmet. Bossk shook off the disorientation, his hunting blood boiling with primal rage. He drew his Relby V10 mortar gun and unleashed a volley of micro-grenades. The explosive rounds detonated against the foundry walls, showering the room in sparks and molten scrap. The Mandalorian ignited his jetpack, soaring into the air to dodge the blast. He returned fire with a heavy blaster pistol, the red bolts grazing Bosk's armoured shoulders scales. Bossk didn't flinch at the pain. He lunged forward, using his massive strength to rip a heavy metal pipe from the wall. As the Mandalorian swooped low to grab the second canister, Bossk swung the pipe like a club, smashing it directly into the mercenary's jetpack. The impact caused the jetpack to misfire, sending the Mandalorian spinning wildly out of control across the room. He crashed heavily into two of Gracchus's magma guards, destroying the droids in a shower of sparks and severed wires. The Foundry was collapsing into absolute anarchy. Gracchus's remaining droids were firing blindly at anything that moved. The Mandalorian was already struggling to his feet, drawing a vibro blade from his boot. Bossk knew a prolonged fight would draw the rest of the local gang out. He scooped up two of the coaxium canisters under his massive arms and used his powerful legs to leap onto Gracchus's central throne dais. He grabbed the heavy leather pouch of credit chips right out of the paralysed Hutt's desk. "Pleasure doing business, Hutt," Bossk hissed. He sprinted out of the side exit, leaving the Mandalorian to fight off Gracchus's automated security. He burst out into the acid rain of Kuat Minor, running hard towards the landing pad where the hound's tooth waited. He had lost one canister, but he had two left, and his pockets were heavy with cold, hard credits. The underworld belonged to him now. Bossk steered the hound's tooth into the uncharted depths of the Chop Field, a treacherous asteroid belt in the outer rim, where the wreckage of separatist dreadnoughts and Imperial cruisers ground against each other. This was the territory of the Cloud Raiders, a fierce pirate fleet led by an aging, battle-scarred captain named Vane. Inside the hollowed-out carcass of an old Lucrehulk-class battleship, Bossk placed his two remaining canisters of coaxium onto Vane's command table. Dozens of heavily armoured pirates, Weakways, Aqualish, and humans watched from the catwalks above. "You want to strike the New Republic shipping lanes, but your fighters are running low on fumes," Bossk hissed, his yellow eyes gleaming in the dim green emergency lighting. "This is raw coaxium. It will hyperdrive your fleet for a standard year." Captain Vane leaned forward, his robotic eye wearing as it scanned the fuel. "And what does the great Bossk want in return for such generosity?" "A seat at the table," Bossk growled. "Your fleet, my target. We split the plunder 60-40. I provide the intel, you provide the firepower." Vane grinned, revealing a row of sharpened metal teeth. "An alliance, then, to the death of the New Republic." The pirates roared in approval, raising their blasters into the air. 3 weeks later, the newly fueled pirate fleet struck. Bossk had intercepted a transmission regarding a New Republic heavy transport escorting a high-value cargo of medical supplies and planetary defense codes through the adjacent sector. The Hound's Tooth led the ambush, flanked by 6 pirate starfighters. They dropped out of hyperspace directly ahead of the Republic transport. "Disable their hyperdrive," Bossk ordered over the comms. "Do not let them jump." Before the pirate fighters could lock their torpedoes, a familiar, modified Corellian freighter dropped out of lightspeed directly above them, cutting through the shadows of the transport. It was the Millennium Falcon. "Bossk, you ugly lizard! I thought I smelled something rotten over here." Han Solo's voice crackled over the open comm frequency, dripping with cocky arrogance. "The New Republic doesn't take kindly to pirates. Turn those ships around, or things are about to get expensive for you." "Solo," Bossk snarled, his scales ripping with deep-seated hatred. "Today, your skin belongs to me." The vacuum of space erupted into brilliant flashes of green and red laser fire. The Falcon dived aggressively into the pirate formation. Solo wasn't flying like a traditional military officer. He was flying like a smuggler who knew every dirty trick in the galaxy. He pulled a tight inverse loop, using his ventral turret to shred the engines of Vane's lead starfighter. "Vane, form a perimeter," Bossk roared, slamming his clawed hand onto the ship's flight controls. Bossk pursued the Falcon into a nearby cluster of space debris. The Hound's Tooth opened fire with its heavy, forward-facing laser cannons, the red bolts scorching the Falcon's deflector shields. Solo veered sharply, threading the needle through a narrow rib cage of shattered Imperial Star Destroyer. Bossk followed, his reptilian reflexes allowing him to navigate the tight, metallic maze at breakneck speed. He locked his concussion missiles onto the Falcon's signature. Gutsy, Bossk hissed. He pressed the firing stud. Just as the missiles launched, the Falcon's top turret fired a perfectly timed burst, detonating Bosk's missiles prematurely, just meters from Solo's thrusters. The resulting shockwave slammed into the houndstooth, causing the tracking console to short-circuit in a shower of blue sparks. Suddenly, the Second Republic ship, a sleek Vanguard class corvette, dropped out of hyperspace behind the transport, reinforcing Solo. Blue iron cannon fire rained down from the corvette, instantly disabling Captain Vane's flagship and scrambling the targeting arrays of the remaining pirate fighters. "Bossk!" Vane screamed over the static, heavy comms. "We're losing the fleet. Pull back." "Cowards!" Bossk roared, but his tactical display showed the grim reality. The pirate alliance was breaking apart under the disciplined firepower of the Republic reinforcement. Through the viewport, Bossk watched the Millennium Falcon swoop in for another strafing run, its quad lasers chipping away at the Houndtooth's forward shields. The shields dipped into 30%. Solo's voice returned to the comms, mocking him. "Nice try, boss. Give my regards to the rest of the guild when you see them in a Republic prison." Bossk slammed his fist onto the hyperdrive lever. "This isn't over, Solo. The hunt never ends." The hound's tooth jolted violently as it punched into the blue vortex of hyperspace, leaving the burning remnants of the pirate fleet behind. Bossk sat back into his pilot's chair, his breathing heavy and ragged, his claws dig deep into the armrests. He had lost his alliance, his fuel, and his pride. But the burning desire to tear Han Solo apart piece by piece was now the only thing keeping him alive in a galaxy that no longer had room for monsters.